They were trending for love until one post. Then multiple posts turned their honeymoon into a bloodbath. Trayvon and Laquandra had just said "I do" in a lavish Houston ceremony that lit up social media. Glowing photos, heartfelt vows, and a viral hashtag #TrayAnquan4ever told the world this was a fairy tale in the making. But by sunrise, the bride would be dead, her body found crumpled on the blood-soaked honeymoon suite floor, and her groom. How does a newlywed couple go from champagne to slaughter in under 24 hours? What kind of rage simmers beneath filtered smiles and picture-perfect captions? This is not just a love story gone wrong. It's a tale of pride, buried secrets, and a man pushed past the brink by betrayal he never saw coming, or maybe he did. Before we unpack this horrifying case, like and subscribe for more shocking true crime stories where love turns lethal. Laquandra Bell Hargrove was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made everyone sit up straighter. At 43, she was unapologetically bold, skin smooth, nails always done, eyes that didn't flinch, and a laugh that could either warm a room or silence it, depending on her mood. As a successful Tidal Max branch manager in Houston, she'd built her life from the ground up with grit, good credit, and the kind of street-savvy confidence that made her the unofficial anti-boss of her neighborhood. Her presence was undeniable: bold wigs, bodycon dresses, and that "I know who I am" energy. She wasn't just secure in her age, she wore it like armor. Men half her age flirted. Women her age admired her. And Laquandra didn't chase love, she curated it. That's why when Trayvon Hargrove showed up, wide-eyed and quiet, nobody imagined she'd give him the time of day. 27, barely 2 years out of a failed HVAC training program. He came into Tidal Max hoping to finance a used Dodge Charger, and left with her number. Raised in a rural Pentecostal household in Dothan, Alabama, Trayvon had been molded in silence and shame. His earliest memories were of whippings that bled into sermons, of "God don't like sissies" muttered like scripture, and of a father whose love came with fists. He was handsome, tall, skin like polished mahogany, and eyes that flickered with something unreadable. But underneath the looks and charm was a deep, gnawing insecurity. He craved validation, especially from strong women, especially from women who knew how to lead. Laquandra saw that in him. Maybe she mistook it for humility. Maybe she thought she could fix it. Their relationship started in shadows, flirty texts, late-night meetups, hushed whispers. But it moved fast, faster than her friends liked, faster than Trayvon could process. And when Laquandra found out she was pregnant just 6 months in, everything sped up again. A wedding was planned. A baby registry was posted. And just like that, the power imbalance became permanent. She was the provider, the planner, the protector. He was the groom with no savings and too much pride to admit it. But the world didn't see their private dynamic. The world saw the wedding video. It went viral in less than 12 hours. Laquandra, glowing in a lace mermaid gown, strutted down the aisle like she owned it. Trayvon, in a velvet burgundy tux, looked more like a groomsman than a groom, nervous, distracted, like he was performing someone else's part. The video was posted with the hashtag #BlackLove, but it didn't stay inspirational for long. Comment sections exploded. People called her Annie Cougar and him the retirement plan. Memes circulated within hours. The internet had crowned her the aggressor, the breadwinner, the fool. And Trayvon? He became a punchline, the man-child who leveled up by lying down. What should have been their fairy tale moment became a social media feeding frenzy. Laquandra tried to laugh it off. She posted follow-up clips. She clapped back at trolls. She doubled down on loving her man. But Trayvon stopped posting altogether. The shame felt too familiar. And the world watching didn't realize they weren't just laughing at a marriage. They were poking holes in a man's barely stitched-together identity. Behind Trayvon's forced smiles and picture-perfect poses, a darker truth simmered just beneath the surface. While Laquandra posted matching pajama photos and ultrasound updates with glittery captions, Trayvon was sliding into DMs like a man chasing a life that wasn't his. There was Zamaria, 21, petite, fast-talking, always online. And Kenya, fresh out of barber school, with a face that launched likes and a sharp tongue that didn't tolerate nonsense. Neither girl knew about the other, and neither knew about Laquandra. Trayvon had constructed a shaky fantasy, telling Zamaria he was single but kinda talking to someone, and feeding Kenya stories about how his ex was obsessed and still clinging. What he never mentioned was the wedding, the growing baby bump, or the woman paying his phone bill. At first, the side conversations made him feel in control, like he could rewrite the script of who he was supposed to be. In one world, he was a faithful husband with a future on the way. In another, he was a free man, desired and untethered. But the mask started slipping fast. Zamaria stumbled across a reposted wedding clip and recognized his voice before she even saw his face. Kenya noticed he stopped answering after 10 p.m., that his energy shifted, that he always had an excuse. And when Kenya blocked him and Zamaria blew up his messages with screenshots and threats to expose the whole clown, Trayvon couldn't keep up. The internet had turned their marriage into a joke, and now his side flings were unraveling too. Everywhere he turned, he was being mocked. His own brother sent him memes of Laquandra in her wedding dress, next to a photo of Medea. His cousin tagged him under a post that read, "When you marry your mama's boss to upgrade your wardrobe." The jabs weren't just from strangers anymore. They were from people who knew him, who had sat at his table, who were now laughing at him from across the timeline. Laquandra didn't end, she rather post more and more, but then the final straw came. It began with a song, the kind of syrupy R&B track that plays over countless wedding slideshows. Laquandra chose it herself, a 90s classic about forever love. She paired it with a montage of their big day. The moment Trayvon kissed her belly at the altar, the champagne toasts, the first dance where he spun her around like a promise. She uploaded it to TikTok just after midnight, smiling at the screen as she typed her caption, "He chose me. Us against the world. #BlackLove, #married and blessed." By morning, the post had exploded. Not for the reasons she hoped. Thousands of views turned into hundreds of thousands. But the comments weren't congratulatory, they were venomous. "Sis married her son's friend. He blinked twice. He's in danger. This gotta be a financial arrangement." The age gap, the dynamic, the way Trayvon barely smiled in the footage, people noticed everything. Someone stitched the video with a skit of a hostage situation. Someone else slowed down the kiss footage and added clown music. It was brutal, cruel, viral. When Trayvon saw it, something inside him snapped. He stood over her shoulder that morning, watching as she giggled at the screen, proud of the reach, oblivious to the tone. She didn't see the damage, but he did. The laughter online pierced him deeper than any belt his father ever used. It was the kind of shame that set his skin on fire. His masculinity, fragile and already in shambles, collapsed entirely. He yelled at her to delete it. She refused. "Baby, don't let trolls ruin what we got," she said with a hand on his chest. But it wasn't trolls. It was the world laughing at his manhood, mocking the life he pretended to love. He tried to take the video down himself, but her phone was password protected. The comment count climbed with every attempt. His chest tightened. His vision blurred. And in that moment, all the voices of his past came screaming back. The preacher father who called him a weak little sissy. The uncle who beat him bloody for talking soft. The kids at school who laughed when he cried during gym class. The mirror that never showed him a man, just a wound. Laquandra, meanwhile, was beaming, planning another upload, posting TikToks from their hotel room in matching robes. She didn't see the storm behind his eyes, didn't hear the thunder in his breath, but she would. At exactly 1:32 a.m., the honeymoon suite transformed from a place of celebration to a scene of unspeakable violence. Trayvon waited until she was brushing her teeth, humming that same R&B song that had accompanied their wedding video. She was barefoot, in a silk nightgown embroidered with Mrs. Hargrove. Her back was turned. She never saw him pick up the heavy glass vase from the side table. The first blow struck the back of her head, shattering both the vase and her skull with a sickening crack. She dropped to her knees, gurgling blood and toothpaste foam. He didn't stop. He smashed the jagged remains into her temple again and again until her face was unrecognizable. The mirror above the sink fractured from the impact of her head. Blood sprayed across the walls in sweeping arcs. Clumps of hair stuck to the tile. She tried to scream. He grabbed her neck, pressed his thumbs down until the veins bulged and her eyes rolled back. He kept squeezing long after her body went still. His wedding band left a red imprint on her throat, pressed so deep it cut the skin. Her nightgown was soaked in blood, torn at the chest, and saturated with urine. A pool of red spread across the marble floor, stretching toward the baby onesie she had laid out for the morning. Their unborn son died with her, his heartbeat silenced before it ever had a name. Trayvon stood over her body, panting, his hands trembling and slick. He didn't cry, didn't scream. He walked to the bed, grabbed his jeans, and slid them on over bloodstained legs. As he left the room, a housekeeper passed him in the hallway and later reported hearing him mumble, "She humiliated me. She humiliated me." The wedding gown LaQuandra had worn only hours before was crumpled in the corner, stained with crimson and chaos. It was no longer a symbol of love. It was evidence. The morning after the murder, the hotel's silence was broken by a knock that went unanswered. Housekeeping, noticing the Do Not Disturb sign still hanging from the knob well past checkout, called the front desk. It wasn't long before management used a master key and entered the honeymoon suite. What they found was carnage. Blood slicked the white tile bathroom like war paint. The smell of iron and death hit before the visual horror fully settled in. LaQuandra's body was crumpled near the toilet, her face caved in, her skin darkened with bruises and dried gore. The broken vase lay beside her, its edges glinting like shards of betrayal. There was blood on the ceiling, smears on the mirror. Her phone, still open to TikTok, buzzed with new likes, unaware its owner was now a corpse. Trayvon didn't run far. Less than 2 hours after the body was discovered, officers found him wandering barefoot in a nearby strip mall parking lot, shirtless and dazed, wearing the same bloodstained jeans. When they approached, he didn't resist. He didn't speak until they placed him in handcuffs and read him his rights. That's when the body cam captured it. "I didn't mean to kill my son," he said, eyes wide and sunken. "I just wanted her to shut up." At the precinct, detectives dug quickly. His phone revealed everything they needed. There were unsent messages to Kenya and Zamaria filled with paranoia and fury, screenshots of the viral TikTok, half-typed text like "you laughing too?" and "I ain't no joke." They found searches for how to delete someone else's TikTok post and divorce before honeymoon. He tried and failed to guess LaQuandra's phone password 5 times before 1 a.m., triggering a security lockout. Further investigation revealed a long thread of lies. He had continued messaging multiple women while engaged, even after LaQuandra announced her pregnancy. He told at least 3 different women he wasn't in a serious relationship. There were texts from family members mocking the age gap, calling LaQuandra his sugar mama and him a kept boy. But it was the confession, delivered in that flat, broken monotone on police body cam, that sealed it. The trial began 6 months later and quickly became a media sensation. The courtroom was packed with cameras, bloggers, and viral TikTokers who had once joked about the wedding montage. Now, they were documenting the aftermath of a digital love story gone brutally cold. The defense painted Trayvon as a deeply broken man, raised in violence, emotionally shattered by a fire and brimstone Pentecostal upbringing that taught him to suppress his pain and fear until it curdled into rage. They brought in psychologists who testified that Trayvon suffered from untreated PTSD stemming from childhood beatings and emotional neglect. One therapist argued that the viral video acted as a digital trigger, collapsing his sense of self and unleashing a dormant psychosis. But the prosecution came armed with something stronger: motive, method, and malice. They called LaQuandra's co-workers, who testified about her excitement, her hope, her joy. They read aloud text messages where Trayvon mocked her, plotted against her, belittled her to friends while smiling in her face. The district attorney called him a narcissist cloaked in pity, A man who saw her love as control, her pregnancy as a trap, and her success as a spotlight on his failures. The most damning moment came when the jury watched the body cam footage. Trayvon sat motionless as his own voice filled the courtroom. "She humiliated me. I just wanted her to shut up." A chilling silence followed, broken only by Laquandra's sister's soft sob from the front row. After 6 days of testimony and just under 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict. Guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder, Laquandra Bell Hargrove and the unborn child she carried. The judge's voice was calm but heavy with finality. "You took 2 lives in a fit of pride, shame, and rage," he said, locking eyes with Trayvon. "There will be no second chances." Trayvon Hargrove was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 25 years for fetal homicide. He will die behind bars, his only legacy carved in blood and hashtags. Echoes of a killer in every share, every laugh, every lesson ignored. When the news broke, the internet that once laughed at Laquandra Bell Hargrove's wedding became a cathedral of mourning. The same video that sparked ridicule, the proud slow-motion montage of her twirling in her gown, holding Trayvon's hand, smiling into the camera as if nothing could touch their joy, was now rewatched with a haunting sense of hindsight. The laughter had died. The smiles curdled. And the top comment, once seen as harmless shade, became a chilling prophecy. "Somebody check on the groom. He don't look happy at all." Suddenly, everyone was checking. Checking the video. Checking the timeline. Checking themselves. Laquandra's name trended for days, but not as a punchline this time. Hashtags like hashtag Justice for Laquandra and hashtag Digital Domestic Violence flooded timelines, replacing the earlier wave of age gap memes and condescending jokes. Influencers who once posted reaction videos to her TikTok now shared somber tributes. Black women especially led the outcry, mourning not just her death, but the world that failed to protect her dignity in life. "She was too confident for them," one woman tweeted. A middle-aged black woman, in love, pregnant, and proud? Of course they tore her down. Conversations erupted across platforms. Was this about age gap relationships? Or was it deeper? Was it about how society mocks older women for being loved too loudly, too openly? Was it about the fragile ego of a younger man raised to equate masculinity with domination, control, and silence? But beneath the digital noise was a very real grief, and a family left shattered. Laquandra's daughter, Tashari, just 25, stepped forward with a public statement at the candlelight vigil held outside the Title Max branch where her mother once reigned with high heels and high standards. Her voice cracked, but never broke. "She was my mama, not a meme," she said, holding a framed wedding photo. "Y'all laughed when she posted that TikTok, and she didn't care. She was proud. She loved out loud. He hated that. He hated that she was proud. He hated being loved by a woman who didn't hide her shine. But my mama wasn't going to shrink for nobody. Not him, not the internet, not the world." The crowd, many holding candles and wearing shirts with Laquandra's face printed above the words "Love Shouldn't Kill," erupted in applause. Churches in Birmingham and rural Alabama held parallel services. While her community mourned Laquandra as a hometown icon, a woman who turned a modest job into a career, raised her kids alone, and still found love in her 40s, Trayvon's hometown in rural Greene County turned eerily silent. His parents, strict Pentecostals who had refused to attend the wedding, refused all interviews. His childhood pastor issued a short, trembling statement. "We failed him." But he failed her more. The silence stretched across Trayvon's side of the family like a black shroud. Laquandra was buried on a warm Sunday, dressed in the second wedding gown she had planned to wear for the honeymoon dinner that never happened. The unborn child, his name would have been Kamari, was listed in the obituary as cherished but taken too soon. And even in death, her story remained viral. Was this preventable? Could someone have reached Trayvon before the resentment turned lethal? Why did no one listen when the warning signs screamed from the screen? But the questions go deeper. To Trayvon's parents, when your child was hurting, Did you teach him how to speak or only how to stay strong? Did the church pews teach him grace or just guilt? And to all parents raising sons today, how are you defining manhood in your home? Are you teaching vulnerability as weakness or courage? Are you showing your boys how to love or just how to lead? This wasn't just a murder. This was a reckoning with what happens when love collides with ego, when perception replaces identity, and when shame festers in silence until it spills into blood. If this story left you speechless, don't just sit with the shock. Share it, talk about it, and subscribe for more true stories where love turns fatal and truth is deadlier than fiction.